OWS Week has tracked Chelsea Elliot down for a chat. She was one of the first two girls pepper sprayed back in September 2011 by NY police. And the beat goes on, held on Hiroshima Day with Occupy Nukes, a national day of action against the U.S. nuclear weapons arsenal went down like a lead ball. Occupy Saks Fifth Avenue action focused against Mexican magnate Carlos Slim, telecommunications, world's richest man, responsible for overcharging Mexico's rural poor. He owns the largest private stake in Saks Fifth Avenue. The OWS Disability Caucus protested outside of Mayor Bloomberg's mansion in NYPD, during which 8 people, some in wheelchairs, were arrested. Then there's Chicago Teachers Union Solidarity Action, and over to LA for Chalk Walk 2. So you know, we have been busy.
Occupy Wall Street is headed for its first anniversary on September 17, 2012. There are many reasons we don't see as many major street actions as in the beginning, but a couple of brutal, inhumane flashbacks stand out in the effective plans of the 1% and its authoritarian gatekeepers. There were 2 civil developments they could not afford to tolerate: massive nonviolent demonstrations and human habitation in public spaces. An infamous incident was filmed exactly 7 days after September 17th. Young women who had been marching and dancing moments before reacted in horror to police beating a young man bloody a few feet away. Police kettled them with orange mesh, then an NYPD white shirt doused them with pepper spray, leaving them writhing in pain and shock as he walked casually away. The film went globally viral within hours, and the whole world started watching, hoping to see Americans rise up with indignant response. Mainstream media was still covering the American autumn, so the Occupy protesters were joined by thousands more, and the brutal crackdowns continued.
We were on a march. We were leaving the march after we all were crowded at Union Square, and we were leaving the march, and we were walking in the street, and police officers came, stopped us, put up orange netting around us, and then a greater crowd built up behind us, and there were, it was extremely chaotic, and a police officer came over and pepper sprayed us. And it was video, it was videotaped, and so then that was made into a video and put on the internet.
What was the date of the march?
I believe it was September 24th, but I don't want to get into specifics about things.
Can you talk to me a little bit about how the lawsuit came about? Was it something that was done with a group of people that were pepper sprayed, or was it just something that...
Well, what happened was that this video was posted the night that it happened, and over 1 million people watched it, and we were then contacted by media, and then we were contacted by people interested in working on our case.
So how long, so it's been going on for the last 8 months now?
I believe so. I don't know exactly what date I signed the papers, but I was approached shortly after the incident occurred. I guess from what I understand is that police are only to use pepper spray in incidences where self-defense or trying to calm down or subdue someone that needs to be detained. So I don't know specifically. There's disagreements about whether this officer was specifically ordered by the NYPD to just go and pepper spray over there, or if it was due to a lack of training on his behalf because he was very experienced, but he walked over and pepper sprayed us. There is no actual justification behind it. As far as from the public's viewpoint, from what I know, the NYPD could have some sort of internal justification that they don't necessarily want to share with the public. I feel like pepper spray, it spread so fast in the air that it could have affected
I mean,
more people than I could count. I don't necessarily know how many people were specifically pepper sprayed. I mean, it went on significantly 3 blocks behind us, so that's not really, I don't know how far the pepper spray reached, but it definitely was intense and felt by more people than were just portrayed on camera. I feel like it's incredibly hypocritical, disrespectful to their officers, and disrespectful to our constitutional rights. I think that they're trying to evade any sort of public criticism and evade any responsibility or accountability in what happened.
Encampments sprung up in hundreds of cities across the United States. One such city was Fresno, California, home to the longest continuous Occupy encampment in the country. One reason Fresno occupiers are so persistent is their commitment to the huge homeless population in the area. Homeless camps have been attacked and cleared relentlessly, shelters and meager possessions destroyed. Natural inclinations of marginalized human beings for social and communal living have been denied by municipal authorities for decades because large gatherings of Americans who have lost everything make politicians and budget bureaucrats look bad. Occupiers have tried from the start to engage with the human beings living in fear in the shadows of the cities. This development could not be allowed to trend, so almost all Occupy encampments were cleared by January 2012.
Last October, I was living, well, for about a year prior to the 27th of October 2011, I was living in the encampment on Santa Fe Avenue. And we got word approximately 30 days prior that we were going to be evicted. The 26th of October, I was asked to speak before a news conference in front of City Hall about this subject, and I did. Well, the 27th, they tore down the encampment that I lived in and displaced everybody that was there. And I was asked to come over here to Occupy Fresno and join with them. And I did exactly that. And I've been here ever since. Well, the city's has a policy of no homeless. They don't want homeless. They want to get rid of the homeless. Their policy is to just get rid of them, period. Their actions are trying to push the homeless, to me, from where I sit, into the county, to force the county to deal with them, because they do not want to deal with homeless. And as it relates to Occupy Fresno, the bottom line of everything Occupy Fresno, Occupy movement across the United States, no matter who or where, the bottom line of everything we fight to stop, fight to change, is homelessness. Corporations have outsourced thousands and thousands of jobs. That means those that worked here in the United States on those jobs no longer have jobs. And within a couple of months, or a couple of paychecks even, they no longer have a house. Their families are on the streets. So, relation to Occupy Fresno with the homeless is very integral. It is very, very closely tied to the point where you really can't tell where one stops and the other starts. I myself am homeless. Everybody in this encampment is homeless. So, they're hand in hand. Absolutely hand in hand. Yes, 1972 to 1979, I was with Company B, 1st and 184th Mechanized Infantry, California Army National Guards, 40th Division. It is so tied into this situation because of the fact of we took an oath as military personnel to stand up and fight for the Constitution itself. The very Constitution that this country was founded on. And there are a lot of homeless veterans across the country. Approximately 30 to 40% of homeless people here in Fresno are veterans. I am not a combat veteran. Although I was trained for 5 of my 7 years in desert warfare in the 70s. Hardcore desert warfare. So we're trying to, and other combat veterans themselves have paid an enormous price to uphold the Constitution of the United States. But it seems to me like the veterans are the only ones that are trying to do that. And it makes us sick. It literally makes veterans sick to see our government tear the Constitution apart.
My name is Evan Giller, and I'm with Shutdown Indian Point now. Indian Point is this 30-year-old nuclear facility on 2 earthquake faults within 25 miles of New York City. It's up for a 20-year renewal, and both political parties, the Republicans and Democrats, support nuclear power. We're here demonstrating on the anniversary of the Hiroshima bombing, where the U.S. inflicted 2 atom bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. First time and the only time that nuclear weaponry was used. We're here in front of the GE building. GE is a maker of nuclear weapons and a maker of nuclear power plants. So we're trying to be in solidarity with the Japanese people who a year ago suffered the devastation of the Fukushima disaster, which is the power plant that had 3 meltdowns. So Japan has had our technology both inflicted on them in wartime and in peacetime. So we're here to try to change that and put public pressure on the government to end nuclear power and end nuclear weapons.
Yet Occupy has continued despite efforts of repression. Groups of dedicated activists continue to highlight issues corporate media ignores. August 6th found Occupy Nukes staging a melt-in at General Electric's headquarters at Rockefeller Center in Manhattan. GE was the world's largest supplier of nuclear weapons technology until 1993, when it withdrew from making weapons of mass destruction due to boycott and direct action campaigns. Activists on A6 pointed out that the company continues to plant its reactors like gravestones all over Earth, and that last year's melted down reactor in Japan bore the GE logo. Occupy Nukes was held on Hiroshima Day to illustrate the connection between nuke plants and nuke bombs, a connection we deny at our peril.
And I'm with the New York City Metro Raging Grannies, and we're protesting atomic energy, GE, Hiroshima, which happened a few years ago, and Nagasaki. And we want to stop nuclear power. It's so dangerous. It makes no sense. It's just for rich people. It's not for everyday people. And so we're trying to stop that. We want peace for our grandchildren and our children so they can live on this planet and it won't be all irradiated like Fukushima, which happened on this planet. When they say Fukushima didn't happen here, it did. It happened on this planet. It happened to us.
Across the country in Portland, Oregon, the ALEC busters from Peace House Friends joined with Portland Jobs with Justice at Verizon Wireless to rally in full hazmat suits against Verizon's stall on a fair union contract and its cuts to workers' wage and health benefits. The American Legislative Exchange Council, ALEC, has been targeted by 99er coalitions for its skewed lobbying on behalf of corporations for months now, and, at least on the surface, has lost some of its corporate sponsors due to negative publicity. Back to New York City on A7 to occupy Saks Fifth Avenue in solidarity with Mexico's Dos Países Una Voz, Yo Soy 132, and labor groups against Carlos Slim, a telecommunications magnate billed as the world's richest man, saying Senor Slim is responsible for overcharging Mexico's rural poor to the tune of $129 billion. Activists attempted to confront him at Saks, where he is the largest private stakeholder.
My name is Juan Jose Gutierrez. I am the co-coordinator of the Two Countries, One Voice coalition, which is a national community-based coalition that was created to bring attention before the American public, the American people, about who the real Carlos Slim is. How did he become the wealthiest man in the world? We are concerned that the Organization for Development and Economic Cooperation, they put out a study early this year in which basically it was documented that the wealth of Carlos Slim basically has been earned on the backs of the neediest sectors of the Mexican population. And to the extent that he's grown his wealth, he's now basically the owner of the vast majority of the telecommunication systems of each and every single Latin American country, with the exception of Cuba. Most recently, he took over the telecommunication systems, which basically means, you know, telephone service, both land-based as well as cellular phones, and the internet. He controls roughly 80% of the entire telecommunications industry. And the reason why we're here right in front of a Saks Fifth Avenue store is because he owns 16% of this particular store, and he has other business interests in America. And he's built this false image that he's this great philanthropist that is really socially responsible and is giving back to the community. And we like the American people to know that, at least as far as Latino people are concerned in the United States, there is not a single documented instance where he's provided any funding to any type of community-based group that provides any valuable service to the community.
They do not care.
This is also about creating presence in the community.
You know what Carlos Slim for businesses?
Every time a Latino and a Mexican make a call in the United States of America, to Mexico or Latin America, Carlos Slim pockets get fatter.
Chicago Teachers Solidarity Campaign held a press conference and picket action the next day to protest the TIF benefit for billionaire hotel mogul Penny Pritzker to build a new Hyatt. Ms. Pritzker sits on the Board of Education, which recently targeted 7 area schools for over $3.75 million in cuts, including 27 positions. Yet her hotel empire benefits from municipal tax revenues. The community showed up to say, hands off our kids' cash.
I'm here as a Hyde Park resident, as someone who got involved with the Chicago Teachers Solidarity Campaign. I'm here because I'm interested in what's happening in the public schools in Chicago. I'm also here because I'm interested in how what happens in the public schools affects the larger community here in Chicago. People are here because they're pissed off. They're pissed off because the schools are falling into a steady decline. And obviously the public schools affect the communities. If the public schools are getting worse and worse, that affects crime, that affects community businesses, that affects all different aspects of society. So we have people from all different unions. We have just regular community parents, and they're just all brought together by this need to fix what's going on in the public school system. Well, a couple things that are really important is to understand that the CTSC as a group isn't a group that just goes after TIFs or the Hyatt or development or anything like that. We are against TIFs in general, and this is one of many actions that we will be going to or planning against TIFs, but also against a variety of other things that take money and resources from the public schools. So we're a group, and this is one aspect of what we see as a problem, and not the only one. The other thing that's important to focus on is not just what money is the community losing out on, but specifically what's happening in the schools. So there are 7 schools in this neighborhood that are losing funding this year. And the fact that over the next 10 years no property taxes from this huge development will go to them will mean that they'll lose even more in property taxes over the next 10 years. So even before they stop paying property taxes, they're already losing over $3.3 million in 27 teaching positions, which is a huge loss on top of an already tight CPS budget. A really big point is that CPS keeps telling people at budget hearings and things, oh, the money isn't there. What do you want us to do? We can't come up with it. It's not in the clouds. Well, we get that. This is a great concrete example of where the money is, where they could have taken money from the TIFs that are supposed to exist to help with funding public programs that's being used to help private interests instead of the schools that need it the most.
Zip over to New York City for Occupy Gracie Mansion on August 8th, where OWS Disability Caucus joined together in the streets in front of Mayor Bloomberg's mansion, where he was throwing a party to honor the Americans with Disabilities Act. Protesters pointed out the mayor's hypocrisy based on his ruthless legal maneuvering against their requests for wheelchair-accessible taxicabs. Mainstream media didn't bother to show up, but mic checks in action were covered by independent journalists, and the news spread quickly. NYPD targeted well-known OWS organizers for almost immediate arrest, and arrests of wheelchair-bound protesters weren't far behind.
I refuse to be arrested! Yes.
Listen, go. You want to go, or you want to go on the sidewalk? No, they said they're just homeless people that refuse to.
Yeah. Runs the police state.
Nothing here to celebrate. Hey.
Helmet, must have helmet. Might get hurt by... This is a peaceful protest! A peaceful protest!
August 9th marked the day of Occupy Los Angeles Chalk Walk 2 and global Chalkupy actions across the U.S. and the world. July's Chalk Walk 1, a peaceful artistic free speech action, was marred by the rubber bullets and foam grenades of LAPD's riot police and portrayed falsely by mainstream media. So OLA decided to hold another event, this time joined in planetary solidarity. There were arrests in many locations, but for the most part, Chalkupy proceeded peacefully and creatively. Occupy Wall Street is heading for its first anniversary on September 17th. These activists verbalize against many wrongs, but most importantly, they organize on behalf of their brothers and sisters for universal human rights, all the world over, so easy to see. It's a birthday for something worth celebrating.